Hello Starbounders! Now here's a thing. If you've been on the internet lately, you may have come across an argument. Imagine that on the internet! So the Starbound Combat update happened in December 2015, and controversially, it reintroduced contact damage. That is, you lose health when you touch an aggroed monster. Some people say this has broken the game and makes fighting all about kiting. Others say it's a much needed way of making combat more varied. Well, yes, this could have been a trolling top 10 reasons why you're all wrong video, but let's take the high road and look at both sides of this. Hosted by me, Jamie from randomiseuser.com, official home of London's longest pizza. Right, let's get this out of the way first. Terraria is brought up a lot when talking about Starbound's combat, and let's face it, pretty much anything else. But it's a bit of a red herring. If you're playing for progression in Terraria, the game is focused on becoming a stupidly hardcore battle experience, where your character becomes an ultra-speedy flying demigod, but the constant enemies get absolutely bloody nuts. This isn't what Starbound is trying to be. In Terraria, the world quickly becomes a battleground, forcing you to take a lot of damage, but it also gives you huge amounts of instant healing, magic, and other fantastical elements that just feel wrong in a more explory sci-fi game. It's also worth pointing out that Terraria's combat isn't really much fun at the start of that game. If you're playing that as an explorer or builder, you end up avoiding a lot of fights. So I don't think we should really worry about whether Starbound's combat should be more or less like Terraria. The game's paths have diverged massively since we all thought Starbound was Terraria 2. So let's get to the meat and take a look at why people are saying they like contact damage. First, it stops the player from just charging in, standing over the enemy and finishing it with a sword before it has a chance to even charge its attack. This does kind of rely on you having a good sword though, and because of the progression, this won't last long. Second, contact damage forces you to face a variety of carefully programmed special attacks and movement patterns in the way that they are intended, so your agility, melee and range skills are all tested at some point. It's just a shame it doesn't really feel like this early on in the game. Third, it makes a group of enemies more threatening. You have to think and react your way out of the situation instead of relying on having the best stats. Finally, maybe it's just not that big a deal. Damage from contact isn't that big, but it provides enough of a punishment for not paying attention enough. And later on, it's the various special attacks that really threaten you. Hopefully, once combat has been further balanced, I suspect we'll kind of forget about it all being a bit of an issue. But until then, let's look at some of the arguments against. First, some people say it makes combat too hard. Starbound has spikes of difficulty when you first jump to a harder planet type without yet having got the correct tier armour, and with contact damage this makes it worse. Well, I don't know. I've also seen people claim it's still too easy, so I think we're in the land of disregardable outliers. Second, it makes combat more repetitive. Ironically, both sides claim that contact damage or lack of it results in this, but the against side generally complain that melee is reduced to simply kiting everything. I think the developers are aware of this, and many of the unique monster designs and attacks are starting to fix this. Next, your character simply isn't agile enough to cope with contact damage enemies, especially underground. There is a lot in this complaint, but I reckon it's nothing that adding new discoverable tech and the like can't fix. Finally, it makes the new fist weapons a bit pointless. There's almost no opportunity where they become the preferred choice, which is stupid because the decent ones are bloody hard to craft anyway. Right now, it's hard to argue with this as it stands. So what do we conclude from all this? Before I heard that contact damage was so fiercely debated, I hadn't particularly noticed or thought about it, and even now I'm not convinced it's that big a deal, or at least it won't be by the time version 1.0 comes out. Combat had its problems both before and after the combat update, but contact damage is not the keystone to this. It's just been a handy focus because it's been such an obvious change. The solution isn't about switching contact damage back off. It has introduced problems, yes, but crucially they can all be fixed by balancing other elements of combat, and by adding in more surprising new monster behaviours as we progress through the game. Chucklefish are taking combat in the right direction, but it's still a bit uneven. Oh, and lots of people have suggested that things would improve if contact damage wasn't universal. If something looks on fire or spiky, then yes, it should hurt you, but not otherwise. This is a neat compromise, although whether it fits in with the greater design for the game, I have no idea. So, if the developers apply more subtlety to contact damage and your character's agility could be upgraded a bit more, then I think combat will be more fun, and it will make you a better, more resourceful fighter. The game has added shitloads of different types of weapon, but if a sword is always the best choice, then what's the bloody point? Anyway, there's still wriggle room for Starbound. We have the progression and polish update still to come, so let's leave it there for now and see how Starbound progresses in 2016 without inciting flame wars. Thanks for watching, bye bye.